Special Monday night edition of Fantasy Football Today, presented by Capital One. Jason Horowitz, Dave Richard, glad to be with you here on the Fantasy Football Today set. And of course, Dave, it's Monday Night Football. It's the Packers and the Bears, and it's always a great matchup when these two teams get together, the longest running rivalry in the NFL. Let's start with Green Bay, out of the playoffs, but Aaron Rodgers has still looked good this season. But the question here is about Ryan Grant. What can you expect from him against the Bears front seven?
And you know what? He's been inconsistent this year, but in this game, there is some consistency. Ryan Grant, 2 straight games with 100 yards or more rushing against Chicago, a touchdown in each of those games. Bears run defense isn't going to hold up against this Packers front. I think Ryan Grant has a good game. If you need 10 points from Ryan Grant in Week 16, you're going to get it tonight.
And hopefully that's to win your fantasy football Super Bowl. Meanwhile, for Chicago, Matt Forte, stay with CBSSports.com to see if he's going to play because he is questionable for the game. Let's assume he does because that's the assumption heading into the game.
And he's been practicing.
And, of course, that's the other part to it. He's too valuable to sit. What about the rest of the Bears?
The rest of the Bears, it looks good on paper because the Packers have been so terrible against the pass. They've allowed 4 straight 100-yard receivers. The question is, who's going to be a 100-yard receiver for the Bears? Devin Hester, he's good for about 50, 60 yards a week. I think Greg Olson's got a shot to contribute. I think Desmond Clark has a shot to contribute. Kyle Orton is the big question mark here. Yeah. If you're using him as a number 2 quarterback, I think you can expect good things. If you started him, I don't know why you started him in Week 16. There's surely other better options out there. But Orton should have a decent game against this Packers secondary.
I'm sure we could find 1 or 2 people that made it to the Fantasy Football Super Bowl with Kyle Orton.
1 or 2, sure.
Maybe. We'll have to look all over CBSSports.com. Who's your boomer bust?
I like Donald Driver in this game, and I think Driver is going to come out and put up some points. He usually gets up and plays well for the Bears. You led off by saying that Aaron Rodgers has been red hot. Obviously, everybody's starting Greg Jennings. I think it's safe to start Donald Driver, too. And one more point. Whether or not the Bears are playing for a playoff spot in this game, they're not going to play for a spot, but to stay in contention for the playoffs. Bottom line is that this is a bitter rivalry, and these two teams are going to go at it. There's a lot of pride to play for. Expect a solid effort from both teams.
And national stage for all these players
at
the end of the season. That's the big part. It's the last Monday Night Football game of the year.
That's right.
Catch us Fantasy Football Today, presented by Capital One, Week 17 on Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, the last show of the season. And, of course, get you ready for those of you who are still playing fantasy football in Week 17 and also help you look forward to 2009 fantasy football. For Dave Richard, I'm Jason Horowitz. Take care, folks.